What's up, everybody? Is Alex Sarr still in play at the number 2 overall pick for the Wizards? And is Kyle Kuzma on the move? We're going to talk about it next on Locked On Wizards.
You are Locked On Wizards, your daily Washington Wizards podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
What's good, everybody? It's your boy, Brandon Scott again, and I appreciate you guys making Locked On Wizards your first listen every single day. We are free and available wherever you get podcasts and on YouTube, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every single day. And tonight's episode is brought to you by Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use promo code Locked On NBA for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. So today we have a special guest, my man, Abdullah, coming out of the DMV Sports Zone. I mean, how you feeling today, man?
I'm doing good, man. Can't wait to talk about the Wiz, baby.
Let's get it, man. Let's get it. So, again, to everybody today, we're going to talk about, is Alex Sarr still in play at the number 2 overall pick? Is Kyle Kuzma on the move? And Josh Giddey. Man, I know a lot of people love or hate the guy, man, but if he's attached to a first-round pick, would you reconsider him being a target for the Washington Wizards? So, we're going to get into Alex Sarr. Could he still be in play at the number 2 pick? All right, so there was a report, and I'm going to pull it out right now, where it talks about the Atlanta Hawks are actually between Alex Sarr and Zachary Shea. So let's pull up the ad real quick. All right, so this is at the Draft Express, and this is through Jeremy Woo, who is an insider for ESPN, and it says, quote unquote, rival teams are expecting the Wizards to draft Alex Sarr or Zachary Shea at the number 2, whichever one isn't selected by the Hawks. Per again at Draft Express and Jeremy Woo, Sarr to Atlanta and Shea to Washington is a probability outcome to kick off the draft. So, Abdullah, looking at that, man, obviously, if you look at the roster construction of the Atlanta Hawks, they could go either way. You know, they could pick up a center. You know, Ken Capella is not going to be there forever. But then, you know, looking at the Hawks' perspective, matching another forward to, you know, a tandem with Jalen Johnson could be intriguing. So, who do you see the Atlanta Hawks picking at 2? And who would you like to see at 2 for the Washington Wizards?
Well, I think Atlanta, again, between Sarr and Zachary, I think they're still going to go Sarr just because I think he's a better prospect than Zachary. And me personally, like, I'm not really high on Zach compared to the other scouts out there. I prefer Donovan Clingan from UConn over. I'm telling you, man, young, like, kind of reminds me of Rudy Gobert somewhat.
Yes, sir.
So it's like, I don't know, like, I could see Atlanta definitely drafting Sarr over him. Now, if they take Zachary at 1, that's going to be interesting whether we take Donovan at 2, or Alex Sarr.
Yeah, I agree. And look, I'm so glad you said Donovan Clingan, man, because I've gotten so much heat, man. But Clingan, I mean, look, looking at the draft, again, this is a draft where a lot of experts are low in the draft. There's not a lot of guys who are going to come in, be starters right away. For a team like the Wizards, this is a highly developmental draft. But Clingan is one of those guys where he's closer to being ready to start than most players because 7'2", 7'3", come on. I mean, he's already a rim protector. Now, you know, obviously offensively, he's got ways to go. You know, you saw him at the combine shooting 3-pointers, and obviously he went, you know, in the modern day center. You know, you look at guys where they can, you know, definitely expand their range. But, you know, you still got Rudy Gobert. I mean, how many defensive player of the year awards has he gotten? So look, being a traditional big ain't too shabby. I'm just trying to tell you. So I'm with you on Donovan Clingan. Now, looking at Alex Sarr, now he is very intriguing at the 5 too. Now, a lot of people say that he can play the 4. A lot of people compare him to Jaren Jackson of the Memphis Grizzlies. You know, I think that if Atlanta indeed does go Zachary Shea, you know, Alex Sarr could be a really good prospect for the Wizards, man. Now, not to say that we shouldn't go after Clingan, because if we go Sarr, I see Clingan dropping, because Houston, do they need a center? I mean, now you could argue that they still have a year of Steven Adams, but then they have it's been a long day, man. With Şengün, there you go, in which he is going to be good, man. So they already got a guy who is going to be slotted to be their center, you know, at a minimum the next 5 years. So do they really go out there, especially at the number 3, and grab a center? I can see him dropping because a lot of teams within the top 10, they have a center in place. So I can see him dropping to maybe 9 or 10. So I do like Donovan Clingan, especially if, you know, he falls, you know, anyway. But looking at Sarr and Shea, you know, a lot of people are high on Shea. I do like Shea, but I think there's definitely going to be an adjustment period. You know, if you look at guys we have on the roster like Bilal and Denny, where Denny this year we finally saw him break out and we finally see pay dirt as far as his development. But, you saw that, it took time for him to acclimate to the speed of the NBA. And, he came in very polished defensively. And, you definitely had to work on his offense game, which we've seen. He's definitely now, you see that 3-and-D potential with Denny and Bilal. Obviously, his offense is something he needs to work on, but the potential is through the roof. So, getting back to the point, man, Alex Sarr, I think, would be a really good prospect, man, because, again, he can rim protect. He's a 7-footer, so we can slate him at the 7-footer, especially if you look at guys in the roster like Marvin Bagley III. Maybe you switch Marvin Bagley III to the 4, and then you're looking at potentially a really athletic tandem at the 4 and the 5. So we have a lot of leeway as far as where we go in this draft, man. So, but I'm with you, Reese Shea, man. I mean,
not a big.
Nah, man. I mean, I you see the 3-and-D potential, but I don't know, man. Something doesn't scream number 2 to me. Like he has, I can see him kind of dropping a little bit. So, and you mentioned Donovan Clingan. As far as Donovan Clingan, his the guy that played with him in UConn. Stephon Castle. Do you think Stephon Castle may be kind of a reach or 2, or do you see him with his size and his capabilities could be maybe a sneak pick or 2?
I think it's a reach at 2. I'm gonna be surprised if it goes after pick 5 or 6.
Yeah,
I just think we just need a big man. In Washington, we haven't had that big man, all-star type of caliber big man that I think just Donovan could bring to DC.
I'm with you. Man, I'm so glad you said Clingan, man, because like I said, a lot of people, and we did a poll on Locked On Wizards, and look, a lot of people said that Clingan was the guy because, again, he's got an NBA body. What is he, 280? The biggest thing with Daniel Gafford last year, or I'd say last year, the season's still going on, but this year was, Gaff, did he have the body to really get in there and bang in the paint with a lot of these bigger bigs, man, which at times he was overmatched just because of a strength issue. And the same thing, with Tristan Vucevic, where I do like him, but he's got to add some strength. Because look, I get it. The modern day big can stretch the floor, but look, you still got guys in the league where you mentioned it, Rudy Gobert, where you gotta have some grown man strength to deal with these guys, man. Andre Drummond, man. You got some bigger. Jokic is a big boy, man. You're gonna have to have a little bit of, some muscle on you, man, to be able to deal with him, man. So I definitely believe that Clingan is the safest bet, man. But if Alex Sarr, so you're right now, if Alex Sarr drops to 2, you're still rolling with Clingan?
Yeah, of course, man.
Okay. And then people gonna try to have us in the comment section, but it is what it is, man. Because look, opinions like booties, man. Everybody got one, man. So look, it is what it is. But I agree with you, man. Clingan is a guy who, again, is very intriguing at the 5, man, because, man, again, he has that NBA body, man. So we're gonna move on to could Kyle Kuzma be on the move, man? And we're going to talk about a couple of destinations draft-wise where we could trade back into the lottery. But before we do, tonight's episode is brought to you by Gametime. So you guys, I go to games year-round, man. If it's NFL season, I'm going to the Commanders. If it's the NBA, I'm already at Capital One. College basketball, baseball, I'm always at a game. Gametime is definitely the best one I've dealt with as far as ticket services, because why? It's an authorized ticket marketplace for the NBA, which makes getting playoff tickets even faster and easier. Prices on Gametime app actually go down the closer it gets to tip-off, which is key, right? With killer last-minute deals, all-in prices, views for your seat, and the lowest price guarantee, Gametime takes the guesswork out of buying NBA tickets. So what are some things that really make Gametime the best out of all the ticket apps? Easy, priority, last-minute deals. You can save up to 60% off buying last-minute tickets for sports and concerts, comedy shows, theater shows, etc. Flash deals. Save even more with exclusive in-app deals on select seats ahead of the game or event. Seat views, right? Get a panoramic view from your seat in the app before you buy, which is key, man, where you ain't sit behind some pillar, right? And the lowest price guarantee, or Gametime will credit you 110% of the difference. Lord. So take the guesswork out of buying NBA tickets with Gametime. Download the Gametime app today, create an account, and use promo code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. And terms apply. Again, create an account, redeem code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. Download Gametime today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. Are you watching Fox Sports or ESPN on your TV all day long? Have to turn on the volume with all that shouting? Make the switch today to Locked On Sports, a free 24/7 sports streaming channel program for you every day to bring you the biggest stories without all the screaming. Locked On Sports Today brings you can't miss analysis, opinions, and news streaming 24/7 on YouTube or the free Amazon Fire TV channels app. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every single day. All right, let's get into it. Now, I brought up 3 scenarios in a previous video where I think that if the Wizards truly wanted to trade back into the lottery, which I think they should definitely do, the centerpiece of most of the deals, if not all these deals, was Kyle Kuzma. So before we get into the deals, look at Kyle Kuzma, what he brings to DC. Obviously, 20 plus points a game. He's definitely utilized his size to attack the basket. He's been a source of leadership in the locker room, but we know that efficiency can take a hit. And when you look at a roster where developing young talent and getting them touches is important, do you see Kyle Kuzma as, somebody who's going to be around for a while, or is he a trade asset in your eyes?
Definitely think with the draft coming up as well that he could be a trade asset, especially if you want another first-round pick. I could see teams like Charlotte, Sacramento, maybe even Dallas. I remember that deal did not go through. Maybe if Kuz is that guy. I know they're in the Western Conference Finals right now, but if they don't go to the finals, maybe they're like, oh, maybe Kuz can help us at 20 points per game. Also, potentially, Donovan Mitchell out of Cleveland. There's been trade rumors about him. Maybe come to DC. I don't know. I'm just throwing stuff out there. I'm just throwing stuff out there. But I generally think if there's a time to trade Kyle Kuzma, it is now.
I agree with you, man. And like I said, I like Kuz, and I like the fact that I've seen him develop from a role guy with the Lakers to a guy who's become a complete player here in DC. Just from the media side, I've gone to kind of get to know him, talk to him a little bit at exit interviews, man. And, the guy definitely likes being in DC. He likes the fact that the Wizards give him an opportunity to be that number 1 scorer. But we're going into year 2 of a rebuild. And I mentioned before where you want to get these younger guys involved, especially Denny, where Denny's finally being a 3-and-D guy. And with that vision, you see him definitely being a secondary ball handler and definitely see him bringing the ball up a lot more than you saw this previous season. Looking at Bilal, he definitely needs a lot more touches than Corey Kispert. The list goes on. So I agree with you. When he signed the contract to stay in DC, with it being a team-friendly deal, the MO was he was eventually going to get moved. And, my biggest thing is this. Yeah, I enjoy him here, but my biggest problem is you don't want to sit on your hands as far as with his value because, I do not believe that his value is going to get any more than what it is. And it's not a knock on Kuz. It's just, on a championship team, on a contending team, he very easily could be a 3rd option or a 4th option, as opposed to being a 1st option here in DC, man. So that's one thing to look at. So there's been 3 main places I'm looking at where we could trade back in and use Kyle Kuzma and maybe utilize the 26th overall pick and get back into the lottery. So I'm gonna start with the first one. Detroit 5th pick. Kyle Kuzma's from Flint, Michigan, will be a homecoming. I mean, I guess we'll go from high probability, middle ground, or low probability. How much of a probability do you see the Wizards where they could trade for the 5th overall pick from Detroit for Kyle Kuzma, maybe the 26th overall pick?
I say it's very low. I'm already as a Pistons fan, I'm already upset that I didn't get a top 4 pick in this draft. So I can't imagine trading back when you have the 5th overall pick for a guy like Kyle Kuzma, who obviously we've seen the limited, he's not a superstar. So obviously they think if whoever they get at 5 potentially could be a superstar, why would we want to go trade back with Washington? And they could get a guy that, looking back down the line, be like, yo, why did you make that move? So I really don't see that happening. But as a Wizards fan, shoot, I'm all in for it. 5th overall pick and number 2, put Steven Castle if he's there. Pair them up with Donovan. Whew.
Man, look, at 5 and 2, I'm just trying to tell you, man, that's actually definitely a really good spot for a Wizards fan. I'm with you. Now, I will say this. Detroit has to start showing something, man. And I think that maybe there's a chance where, you add a guy like Kyle Kuzma where, again, you could pencil him in for 20 plus points a night. He's just that scorer first guy, and he does it well. But they need to start showing some pay dirt as far as the development in Detroit, man, because patience is wearing thin. I mean, they've drafted top 10 how many years, and, they're just haven't made that next step. And they've added veteran pieces, and looking at Bogdanovich, who they eventually moved, but they got to start showing something. So maybe they feel inclined, but I'm with you. Number 5, you still pick up a guy at 5, in my opinion. So I'm with you on that. All right. So the next one will be number 9 to Memphis for the 26th and Kuzma. What are you thinking?
That's way more higher than with Detroit. You pair someone with John Morant and Jaren Jackson. I mean, who knows? Obviously, this year the Grizzlies took a step back because the whole John Morant suspension, all the drama that happened. So I wouldn't be surprised, especially for the Wizards, you're trading him to the Western Conference, so you don't have to worry about him still being in the East. So I could very much see Memphis, especially with the 9th overall pick, pair him with 26. I can see that.
Yeah, same here. I think that he would be a good addition for a team that is looking to make the playoffs. Memphis is not a team that's really a rebuilding team. They got John Morant. I think that you put Kyle Kuzma in the lineup with Desmond Bane and Jaren Jackson, I think that's a really good lineup in my opinion. Now, would that be necessarily enough to really contend in the Western Conference, man? And look, the Western Conference is a monster, man. Like I'm trying to tell you. I mean, now that you see Minnesota taking a step, with OKC, their exit wasn't the best, but they taking steps. I mean, the Western Conference is going to be hard. And, and that's why it's funny that every year people are trying to add pieces to the Lakers to try to get them to win, man. It ain't going to be easy, man. It ain't going to be easy. So the final pick I'm looking at, the 15th pick, Miami, for maybe Kyle Kuzma or Jordan Poole. Because, look at the Jordan Poole, like, a lot of people know I'm high on Jordan Poole, even though he did get his fair share of smoke on this platform for his struggles, man. But look, man, you can't put enough on the fact that, look, Jordan Poole got hated on by most, if not every sports media outlet on the globe. And so to him bouncing back, being that sixth man and then taking over a point guard, he showed a lot mentally that he can handle that pressure. So I'm high on Jordan Poole. So, look at it, those are probably the two most tradable assets, in my opinion. So, and I do think that the Heat culture could do a lot for Jordan Poole as far as his professional and his personal hallmarks, milestones in the development as an NBA player. So could you see one of them and maybe the 26th pick and how much of a chance do you see us getting the 15th overall pick from Miami?
I think that's less than Memphis, but higher than Detroit.
Yeah.
Considering the fact that, like, Miami, like, obviously they have Jimmy Butler, Bam Adebayo, Tyler Hero, all those guys, and they can make any role player look like a superstar in the playoffs. We saw that these past couple of years. I would rather them us trade Kyle Kuzma than Jordan Poole. I still have faith in Jordan Poole. I was a big fan when we traded for him. And obviously, he got a lot of smoke, like you said. But we saw that second half improvement, and I think a year under his belt next year, I think it's just the life in DC playing with the Wizards is going to be so much more slower. And he's still relatively young compared to Kyle Kuzma. So I would rather trade Kuzma to Miami if that trade happened. Pick 15, it's still valid. It's the middle of the first round.
Yeah, I mean, in 15, if we go other than center with number 2, then 15 puts you in this sweepstakes to kind of go get a Zach Edey, which I think wouldn't be too shabby as a backup plan at center, man. So again, we have a lot of capabilities with the second, the 26th, and the 51st pick in this year's draft, man. So we have, and look, and I guess that's a question, man, because I'm very high on in this big three we have in the front office, man, between Michael Winger, Will Dawkins, and Travis Schlenk. How much confidence do you have in this new front office?
A lot, because none of them are named Tommy Shepard. No, in all seriousness, with the experience they have, Will Dawkins and OKC with Sam Presti, I have so much confidence. And whatever these moves they make right now, I know down the line it will definitely pay off.
Yeah, I agree 100% with you, brother. I mean, I think that this new front office, man, they know what they're doing. From a scouting and development perspective, I think that's the biggest key is that they know how to scout, they know how to develop. And the Wizards have been so bad with developing players, man. I mean, you mentioned the name Tommy Shepard, Lord have mercy. But even going back to Ernie Grunfeld, I mean, how many times we missed some picks, man? And how many times could we have picked up iconic players in the draft, man? I remember that, to me, the stupidest trade ever made was Randy Foye and Mike Miller for, what was it, the 5th overall pick, which should have been Stephen Curry in DC, and we missed on that chance with a trade. Obviously, Klay Thompson could have been here. John Wall himself advocated for him to come here. I mean, we missed, Jan Vesley. Yeah. I mean,
that's one thing, but also the handling money, the contracts that we gave out, I mean, atrocious. And then trading young guys for like older players. I remember my beginning years of a Wizards fan when we traded Kelly Oubre for Trevor Ariza. I was so upset about that. Like, it was just stuff like that where it's like, we know we're not going to be contending, so why not stick to the young guys that we have on this team? But I know Will Dawkins is definitely going to change the culture up because it's not an Ernie Grunfeld, it's not a Tommy Shepard.
Yeah, I agree with you, man. Both of them were abysmal. Now, I will say this about Tommy Shepard at the time of his draft picks, because I know his draft picks have gotten a lot of criticism. I'll say this, in hindsight, I don't think it's so much. Now, you can look at the whole Tyrese Halliburton versus Denny Avdia draft and say that, there's both, should we have drafted Tyrese Halliburton as opposed to Denny Avdia? And I actually said no. And, because my reason for that is, did we have the development in place? Did we have all the keys in place to get the most out of Tyrese Halliburton? I don't think we did, man. And he very well couldn't have been the same player, in my opinion. So looking at Denny, obviously he was a guy who needed to be developed. And we're starting to see pay dirt when it comes to Denny, man. We're starting to see that potential as a 3D, especially his vision. His shot is a lot more. His shot release is faster. His confidence is higher. And, young guys like Denny or Bilal or Kyle Kuzma, man, confidence is always the name of the game. You saw with Denny when his confidence is low, totally different player. So in hindsight, I think that the draft picks, Corey Kispert, I'm not gonna mention Johnny Davis, Lord happens, but Denny Yaki, yeah, I know.
We could do a whole episode on him.
Whole nother episode, man. But I don't think it was so much they were bad draft picks, that they were drafted to be immediate impacts. And they were not going to provide immediate impact on this team, man. They were players who had to be developed. So, Tommy Shepard, but yeah, he was tripping, man. I think he really got himself fired, man, when he traded Rui for a bag of chips and a half smoke, man. I mean, I think that's what did it, man.
Yeah, that trade, man, bro. I miss Rui, man. I'm not gonna lie.
Rui was a heck of a player, man. And I'm not one of these people to buy the whole, he was getting it in his way. I think there was times where they played together and they played together great. Obviously they had two different skill sets. Rui's that guy who's an ISO scorer, and Denny was more of a guy where at the time was a defensive guy who offensive side was not yet there. So I'm not one of those guys that thought that he was in Denny's way. I definitely wouldn't mind still seeing Rui in the Wizards uniform, in my opinion. So we're going to get into Josh Giddey. And I know Josh Giddey's name has been a hot topic in the sports world right now. And if the OKC Thunder attach a first-round pick, would that change people's minds of whether or not Josh Giddey should be brought to DC? But before we get into that, tonight's episode is brought to you by BetterHelp. So, as you guys know, I'm a big catalyst for, definitely if there's something going on, you definitely need to talk to somebody. Because again, America in today's society, not so much now, but in the past, counseling was a taboo. People didn't really get into counseling, but now it's changed. So I definitely recommend counseling service like BetterHelp, because if you're thinking about starting therapy, please give BetterHelp a try. It's entirely online, designed to be convenient, flexible, and suited to your schedule, which is big reasons why people do not get into counseling, right? Just fill out a brief questionnaire and get matched up with a licensed therapist, and switch therapists at any time for no additional charge. So get it off your chest, people, with BetterHelp. Visit BetterHelp.com/LockedOnNBA today to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp. HELP.com/LockedOnNBA. And for my military people, Hotel Echo Lima Papa.com/LockedOnNBA. All right, man. So let's get into the final topic tonight, Josh Giddey. Now, I just covered this a video or two ago, I believe it was the last video, about whether Josh Giddey should be an option, because I know that right now, according to Vegas, the Wizards had the best odds to land Josh Giddey, because with him being such a guy that needs the ball in his hands, who can't play point guard, but that doesn't mesh well with SGA as far as the future backcourt. So, number one, would you like Josh Giddey here, and do you like his skill set? And two, if they included a second or a first round pick or two to Josh Giddey, would that change your mind on acquiring him?
Well, first, when we talk about Josh Giddey, I think we also have to consider the fact, Will Dawkins, the OKC connection. Yep. So I think that's why a lot of us have the Bleacher Report, all these apps have us at number one favorite to land him. But honestly, I wouldn't mind. I was a big fan of him coming out of the draft. 6'8" for his size. Off the court, whatever happened, I think we moved past that. I know when you mentioned it in your video, but when he came to DC, he was getting a heck of a lot from fans heckling. But no, I guess it just depends on how much we have to give up for Josh Giddey. But if it's a first round pick and the other draft compensation, I'm all in for it. Again, these young guys, like we have seen, like Denny Avdija get that have that jump. Bilal Coulibaly next year definitely will have a leap. So bringing Josh Giddey, who knows, man? It could definitely be something.
I think so too. I think there's a couple of different ways to look at this, man. Number one, you mentioned it. His versatility and his size really scream out to me, because, man, he's 6'8", and he's versatile. He played the point guard, two guard, the wing. I mean, he's very versatile, which if you look at what we have going on in DC, we have guys who can play multiple positions. Denny can play the 4, the 3, maybe the 2. I mean, he can guard 1 through 5. Same thing with Bilal. Bilal is very versatile. I'll say this. I'm not going to get into the whole off the court stuff, and and I've covered players here before that had issues, whether it was domestic stuff with Miles Bridges, Kevin Porter Jr. I'm not going to get into it. He didn't get charged, but I'm not going to get into that, man. That's just, but I'll say this. He does have the skill set and the size I like. Now, shooting wise, while his 3-point shot does need to improve to a certain degree, especially when you look at league averages around 35% for 3-point percentage. He's shooting around 33%. So he definitely has room to improve. But you hit the nail on the head. That connection to Will Dawkins, I think, cannot be ignored, man, because it is, the relationships count in the NBA. They really do. So now that really makes you ask a question: who do we give up? I personally do not want to give up Denny Avdia, in my opinion. I think that he's definitely a piece that you keep on this team long term. Same thing with Bilal Coulibaly. I think both of them. And I'm not going to say that Denny's untouchable because I think that very team-friendly contract, and if the price is right, you make that move. But as far as development, his age, he fits the timeline. He's comfortable here. He's the longest tenured Wizard. It's just so many reasons to keep him here, in my opinion. Corey Kispert could be a name, including, Kyle Kuzma and dangling the number 26 pick to obtaining him. And I don't see, and if they're willing to give up a first, I don't see them taking on the 26. But if we'll see. But do you really give up Kispert because you're giving up shooting? How do you go from a guy who, he's a lights out shooter for a guy where he needs to improve at the shot? So it really depends on who we give up. But I think that the relationship, the connection between him and Will Dawkins does say something about a potential deal. And number two, if you look at what's going on with the CPA with the NBA, man, you have to take up so much part of your cap space. Looking at the Houston Rockets, they picked up Van Fleet. They picked up, what's his name, man? It's been a long day. Previously of the Memphis Grizzlies.
Dylan Brooks.
There you go. And Dylan Brooks has done well for Houston as far as adding that leadership part, being that part of a young core to really help push them over the top. Obviously, their season didn't end the way they went to, but look, as an NBA fan, Houston's sneaky, nice. They got a nice squad going forward, man. That's why I'm saying the Western Conference is going to be a monster, man, because, I saw OKC coming to DC. I think the only game I did miss the T-Wolves this year, man. My back, I jacked my back up, and I do regret that, man, because I wanted to watch Anthony Edwards for good reason, man. But, getting back to your point, Josh Giddey. Yeah, every time he touched the ball, he got smoke in the Capital One, man. People just were letting them have it, man. And all I could do was just laugh, man. But I kind of covered this too when I did a video about Mark Jackson, which is, if you look at people who've gotten in trouble in the NBA, and I'm a big believer in second chances. Now, I don't condone things like, beating the wife up or, wife beating the husband up. Anything that has to do with spousal abuse, I don't condone that, man. And, I don't condone a lot of things that happen. But, looking at Mark Jackson and particularly looking at Josh Giddey, we got to be about second chances, man. If you can go out and go beat your wife and you're still playing, he got off in the charges. And I'm not going to get into whether, he did it, he didn't do it. It's not my place to do that. But, I'm not going to knock him for that, man. Look, either charge him or not. But if he's free to play, I think that he should definitely be a commodity coming here to DC, in my opinion. Like I said, I don't condone what he potentially did or did not do, especially as a guy who has 2 daughters. But in the same thing, I'm not a judge, and I ain't here to judge nobody, man. So, looking at his skill set, I'm definitely a big believer in second chances because Kai Jones was the one guy that we talked about here on this channel where, he had his own fair share of issues. But I feel like that if you got him right, you have a jewel in the rough, man. And sometimes people just need to change the scenery and some help. Like I said, some things you just can't forget, man. But, within the realm of the NBA, man, we've seen some serious stuff going on in the NBA, man, where, I don't know. I guess I'll ask you real quick. Michael Porter Jr.'s brother, man, got pretty much Pete Rosed out of the NBA, man. You think that was right, considering looking at all the other infractions players have done in the NBA? You think that was a fair punishment?
Obviously, it sucks because it ruins the integrity of the game.
Yeah.
From my point of view, it's just people have done way worse. Players have done way worse, and the punishment that they have received compared to indefinitely suspension just doesn't. To me, it doesn't make any sense. And there's also in the NFL too, guys hit their wives or hit players caught on camera, a 4-3-week suspension compared to a guy like Calvin Ridley, for example, who gambled on himself and is just gone for a whole year. So it's very wishy-washy. I'll never understand it. It ruins the integrity of the game, I guess. But I'm not a big fan of he beat someone up, his wife or his kid.
Yeah.
Give him that, but gambling, yeah, put him out for a long time. We don't want that guy in our league. It just doesn't make any sense.
Oh yeah, and that's where I'm at, man. As far as Josh Giddey's, I don't condone spousal abuse. I don't condone underage anything. Like I said, I have daughters, man. No, I do not look kindly on that, man. But here's the thing, as far as the NBA, and this is why I kind of push forward, which is, look, one size fits all as far as implementing rules, man. You cannot treat one infraction and say, oh, that's terrible, we're going to kick him out. But then you have a guy that does something where, let's be real, man. If you're really comparing betting to beating your wife up, let's be real, which one's really the worst one? And, Miles Bridges, no shade on Miles Bridges because, he took his L, you went out, you got help, and he's still in the league. So, boom. But Yeah, I don't know if they should have Pete Rosed him, man. I mean, right now, obviously, they're trying to make a statement because betting right now is becoming a big thing in sports, and I get that. But I'm also, I don't know if you get in baseball, man, but I'm one of those people that think that Pete Rose shouldn't be. I think he should be back in the league, in my opinion, because this is my opinion. So, yeah, I was just kind of inquisitive what you thought about that. So, look, man, we covered a lot tonight, man. So, definitely appreciate you coming on, man. So before we roll, man, anything you want to plug real quick, man?
No, like you said, beginning of the video, part of the DMV Sports Zone channel, me and 5 other my friends, we talk about the DC sports teams, mainly focused on the Commanders and Wizards. Obviously, be mixing some Nats and Caps. Also, I'm a student at Virginia Tech, going in my 4th year, so talk about Virginia Tech football. It's going to be a good year this year, considering the fact that we actually have an adequate quarterback. So, enter Sandman in All Lane Stadium. Just make sure you guys check it out at DMV Sports Zone on TikTok, Instagram, Twitter, and YouTube. And yeah, appreciate it again, Brandon.
Oh, anytime, man. Like I said, I definitely appreciate you coming on, man. And I'm a big fan of what you guys do. Great content, man. Great content. So I definitely recommend everybody definitely check out DMV Sports Zone, man, because that is high-end content, man. So again, definitely appreciate you, man. So everybody, we will catch you next time. And next video coming up, man. We're gonna get into draft procs like we always do. We're gonna take a look at Isaiah Collier. Could he be a fit in the DMV? So we're going to talk about that next, man. So I will definitely catch you guys tomorrow night. So hail to the Wizards and peace. See you guys next time.